Welcome to your favorite channel, where you'll learn everything you need to know to improve your health and lifestyle. Let's get started.
You know, we're always told that stress is the enemy. It's this thing we have to fight, to manage, to get rid of at all costs. But what if that's only half the story? Today, we are going to dive into some fascinating science that suggests a little bit of stress, just the right amount, might actually be one of the best things for you.
I mean, you've seen it everywhere, right? People on social media jumping into ice baths or starting their day with a painfully cold shower. It looks absolutely crazy. But is there something to it? Could all that intentional, short-term discomfort actually be making them stronger, more resilient? Let's find out.
So this brings us to what I like to call the stress paradox. How on earth can something we're wired to see as negative, like, being stressed out, actually end up being good for us? It feels like it shouldn't work that way.
Well, there's a scientific name for this whole idea. It's called hormesis, and once you understand it, it completely changes how you look at stress. The core idea is basically that old saying, the dose makes the poison. But what's really cool is that sometimes the dose also makes the medicine. And this right here really drives the point home. See, we tend to think in straight lines. If a little bit of something is bad, then a lot must be way worse. But our biology doesn't work that way. It's more of a curve. Think about sunshine, right? No sun at all isn't good. A little bit? Great! You feel good, you make vitamin D. But too much? You get a nasty sunburn. It's all about finding that sweet spot.
So how does this actually work inside our bodies? Like what's happening at a cellular level when we step into that cold shower? Well, it turns out the answer is basically hardwired into our ancient survival programming.
Okay, so this chart breaks it down perfectly. It shows you the two completely different faces of stress. Over here on the left, you've got that short, sharp, manageable stress. Think of it like a fire drill for your cells. It's a signal that says, hey, wake up, strengthen the defenses. But on the right, you've got that chronic, relentless stress we all know and hate, the kind that just grinds our systems down.
And the science is really clear about the dangers of too much stress. As this quote from our source points out, when stress just goes on and on, it's not just a feeling. It actively messes with our immune system, basically hitting the mute button on our body's defenses. That's the high-dose inhibition we were just talking about.
So how do our cells actually get stronger from these little hits of stress? Well, a huge part of it is thanks to this amazing protein pathway called NRF2. Seriously, you can think of it as your cell's own built-in personal trainer. When a little stressor like a blast of cold water shows up, it's like the trainer blows a whistle. NRF2 gets activated, sprints to the cell's command center, the nucleus, and starts switching on all these protective genes that fight inflammation and clean up cellular junk. It's amazing.
All right, so if too little stress doesn't do anything, and too much is obviously harmful, how do we find that sweet spot? Well, that brings us to what we call the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold, but just right.
You'll often hear scientists describe this relationship with what's called a biphasic dose-response curve. It usually looks like a U or a J. And the big takeaway here, the thing to really remember, is that the best possible result, the optimal point, isn't at zero stress. It's actually at a small, controlled dose, right there at the bottom of that U.
Here's a really simple way to picture it. With zero stress, you're just at your baseline. Nothing special happens. With chronic stress, you're in the red zone. It's harmful. But right there in the middle, that mild, purposeful stress, that's where you get the magic. That's the optimal response that actually makes you better than your baseline. That's the spot we're aiming for.
So let's bring it back to that cold shower we started with. This is a perfect real-world case study. The cold water itself is what scientists would call a hormetine. It's the specific stressor that kicks this whole beneficial process into gear. It's a textbook example of using a little bit of extreme temperature to trigger all those protective pathways.
Okay, now that we kind of get the idea using cold showers as our example, let's zoom out a little. Because this principle, hormesis, it's not just about temperature. It is a fundamental, core concept of our biology. And just look at this table. It's everywhere. That intense workout where your muscles get sore, that's hormesis. Trying out intermittent fasting, that feeling of hunger is a biochemical signal that triggers all sorts of cellular cleanup. Even the slightly bitter compounds in healthy foods like green tea or curcumin from turmeric, those are mild chemical stressors that tell our body's defenses to power up. So what's the payoff for all this? Well, it's huge. By purposefully adding these little controlled stressors into our lives, we're doing some serious upgrades.
We're strengthening our cellular repair crews, dialing down inflammation, protecting our brains, and just building this incredible all-around resilience to whatever life throws at us next.
So, after all this, what's the big takeaway? What should you do with this information? Well, it really calls for a whole new way of thinking about stress.
And this is it. This is the big mental shift. Stress isn't your enemy. It's a tool, a really powerful tool for adaptation. So the goal shouldn't be to build a life with zero challenges. The goal is to get good at dosing those challenges, using them to make us stronger, not to let them break us down. You know, a really great way to think about this is to compare it to a vaccine. With a vaccine, we introduce a tiny, harmless piece of a bug to teach our immune system how to fight the real thing. Hormetic activities like exercise or a sauna or that cold shower, they do the same thing. They're like training sessions that build your body's resilience for the big, unpredictable stresses of life. So I'm going to leave you with this question to chew on. What's one small, beneficial stressor you could mindfully add to your week? And hey, it doesn't have to be a full-on ice bath. Maybe it's just taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Maybe it's trying to skip breakfast one day. Or maybe it's just ending your next shower with 30 seconds of cold water. What's one small way you can start practicing this to build a stronger, more resilient you?
Here are some tips to help you have a healthy and strong body and mind. Remember that we upload videos every day.
All right, let's dive into a plan for a life that's not just longer, but way better.
The goal here isn't just adding years. It's about adding life to those years.
This all comes down to what we call health span, the years you feel healthy and strong.
And you can take control. This explainer breaks it down into 3 simple pillars.
So, let's jump into the first and maybe most powerful pillar, using movement as medicine.
Seriously, the data is overwhelming. Nothing beats exercise for preventing physical and mental decline. Research consistently shows these 3 are the biggest predictors of how well you'll age.
Okay, so it's all about balance. A good weekly plan hits all 4 of these fitness zones.
Think of it this way. Building muscle now is like a retirement account for your health. All right, let's move on to the second pillar. Let's talk about fueling for longevity.
A super powerful strategy? Simply limiting the window of time you eat each day.
Doing this basically flips a metabolic switch that helps your body protect and repair itself.
And to tackle inflammation, which we know accelerates aging, load up your plate with these.
And finally, pillar 3. This is about knowing what's actually happening inside your body.
Because you can't just guess, right? A few simple blood tests can give you real data.
For example, these 3 key markers give you a really clear picture of how you're doing.
And the impact here is huge. Getting a handle on inflammation alone can add years back.
All right, time to bring it all together. How do you make this plan personal and lifelong?
It's called the Centenarian Decathlon. The idea is to train for what you want to do.
So your list might look completely different. And that's the point. Train for what matters to you.
It really boils down to this. Set your goals, adopt the pillars, and just keep going. So, what matters most to you? What's going to be on your decathlon list?
If you found this video helpful, please subscribe and help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers so I can bring you better content. See you tomorrow with a new video.